All right, so I think I have enough time now. We've got 17 minutes. So I'm going to switch across to my laptop, and I'm going to show you what's involved in creating a very, very quick CakePHP application. Just to give you a little taste of what's going on. Is this going to work? Bloop. So I'm going to create a little online store. I'm going to see if I can do it in 17 minutes. Can we create an online store that allows us to manage data and browse my products? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clone the foundation system build into a directory called database. And then once I'm in my directory called database, I'm going to compose or install. And while that's happening, I'm going to design my database. Right? So my online store is going to have some products, and it's going to have some categories. All right, so you've got products and categories. What's the relationship between these going to look like? Pardon me? One to many? No. Right, one category should have, what's the point in a category unless it has multiple products in it?
But a product possibly could belong to more than one category.
Yeah, most online e-commerce systems will have a product in multiple different categories. So as soon as we do that, it means we need a join table over here. Right? And that's going to be called, CakePHP would actually like us to call it products categories, but it doesn't really matter what categories products.
Would like us to call it categories underscore products because it likes it.
Yep, one step ahead of you, already fixed, thank you. All right, so one product can be in many categories, one category can have many products. And this join table doesn't exist unless it is absolutely joined onto two records. So that's my system. Sure, there's going to be some other stuff that goes on later on, but let's start with this and we'll see how far we get. So open PHP Storm. While that's opening, yes, I'll finish the composer process, and we'll wait for PHP Storm to open. Should I turn the lights off, or we can read okay? All right, I'm going to create a new project, PHP project in home feed code DB. Yes, of course, there's an existing project there, so I just cloned my repository. So I tried to make the text a little bit bigger. Is this still pretty small though? That looks pretty small.
The IDE started it well, didn't it?
Let's make it a little bigger. Font 24. Font. This is how prepared I am. Font. It really is 24. Okay. And the one on the left is not big enough, so let's open it again. All right, running out of time, got 14 minutes. Oh no. So what's going to happen is, I'm going to need to go in, like you did with your foundation system builds, you need to change the app.php to point to a database that's available. Actually, no, let's start one step back. I'll go back into PHP Storm, if it lets me. Yep, it is, that's good. And from here, I'm going to create my database tables. So PHP Storm is a really nice database client, which allows me to interface with the database. You can use MySQL Workbench, or you can use SQL Developer, whatever your preference is. The text is small again. Anyway.
JetBrains also make one called DataGrip.
DataGrip from JetBrains, okay, cool. And they're probably using something pretty similar to this technology. So I have a database on my local machine. Username is DB, database is DB, password is something completely unguessable. So I've got my database here. My database is empty. Here's my database with no tables in it. So what do we say the first tables were? Let's go back to my model, because I was going to start with my hand-drawn picture. I'm going to create a products table. Let's go create a products table. New table. We'll call it products. What did we say about primary keys? What should they be called? Int. It's not null because it's a primary key, and it's auto increment, and it's a primary key. We'll probably have a name for our products, which is maybe a varchar 255 or something like that. And as I said before, I don't like nulls in my database. Maybe a description. Varchar, I don't know, 1000. Not null because I don't like nulls. And that's a pretty good start. Let's create that database. There's now a products table here that I can see with ID, name, and description. However, I also said that every single time you create a table, you should take a copy of the SQL required. So that someone else who joins my team can also create this database. So let's go find the SQL scripts, copy DDL to clipboard. So DDL is a data definition language, I think. I'm going to create a new file in my repository, and I'm just going to call it db.sql. Oh, it already exists. Let's call it store db.sql for my online store. And I'm going to paste this SQL here because I don't want to lose it. Right? I want to be able to come back later on and then completely delete my table here. So I select this, I press delete, OK, and it's gone. But I can come back into this here and hit Control-Enter, here, and execute this code, and it will create the database again. So now I have my products table back. So at any point in time, I can completely throw away my database and start from scratch. Likewise, I'm going to create some test data. Insert into products. I don't need to insert the ID because it'll get automatically created, but I will have a name and a description. Let's insert multiple values. So the first one, the name will be, let's make it so that my online store sells food, I guess. So the first product can be orange juice. Description, I won't bother with the description yet. And then I'll also have Milo, and let's have a sandwich with no description. All right, and I can Control-Enter, run this. It's executed the code, and when I look at my products table, I now have data in there. And at any point in time, I can delete this whole database, rerun my script, and I'll have all of that data back again, which is really valuable. If Bill comes to start working on my system, he can test it with real test data very quickly. Thanks, Janet. All right, so now, what was the other table? It was categories. Let's go create that. New table, categories. The columns will be ID, int, not null, auto increment, primary key, and we'll just have a name for the category, which is varchar 255, not null, and I select all as text. And so I've got the categories table. I'm going to put it in here so that if my table, now I can delete the categories table and recreate it. And I'm going to insert some test data. We just have a name this time. So I'm going to call it food and drink. We don't have a description anymore. If I make any mistakes, please just yell out and I'll try and sometimes you'll catch them before I do. Okay, and I can run this script, Control-Enter, Alt-Enter, Control-Enter, whatever. And now I have a bunch of categories and products in my database. So the final thing I need is I need this join table, categories, products. So I'm going to create a new table. And again, you can use whatever tool of choice you want. You can just write the SQL if you're comfortable doing that. So I'm going to call it categories, products. Yeah. Now this has a column called, the first one is going to be a foreign key to a products table. What will I call that? It's an integer, it's not null, it's not auto increment. It will be part of the primary key, but it's not the sole primary key. And the other one is category ID, which is an integer and not null. And then I'm going to go to the foreign keys. Well, I guess let's create a composite key. I know we said we're not very good, the composite keys don't work very well in CakePHP, but it's perfectly capable of understanding that there's a product ID and a category ID, and both of those together form the primary key down here. And then there's two foreign keys. So the first one is the target table will be products, and the column will be product ID. The next one will be, the target table will be categories. The column, I wish it was smart enough, but it's not smart enough to know that I want category ID. Okay, done. And this one here, I don't want. So now we have a primary key, we have a constraint for a foreign key, and another constraint for another foreign key. So I'll select all this, execute the SQL, created that table there. I'm going to, like I did before, store the SQL here, or the DDL. You can call it SQL if you want, doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to join some of my records together. So firstly, actually just let me delete everything here because I've made a little bit of a whoopsie. So delete all of those. I'm going to, normally I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to force a primary key in here, so the primary key of 1, 2, and 3. And the only reason I'm forcing a primary key is because it's test data, and I want to refer to it later on in my test data. So when I insert a join record into categories products, then it's the product ID and the category ID. Then the product ID of 1 is orange juice. What category is that? Is that food or drink? Right. Sandwich. Let's do number 3. Is that food or drink? 1. What about Milo? Trick question. Milo is both. Food and, so Milo is ID 2, belongs in the category 1. Milo is ID 2, belongs in category 2. Done. So let's take all of this, we'll execute my code, and it doesn't work. Insert into products name description. Oh, okay. You guys are meant to tell me if I make a mistake. I forgot to put the ID in here, ID. And same with down here, ID. Notice how it actually created the tables and then it fell over at the second part of the script, which was the inserts. So I need to go delete the tables. I could put some drop table statements up here if I wanted. Drop table products. Drop table if exists products, or products if exists, or something like that. Anyway, doesn't matter. We don't really need that right now. Okay, so I'll select all of this, I'll run it, and now I've got some test data. Categories, products, categories, products. Cool, that's great. So now I need some CakePHP stuff to actually build a website. So we already have a website here. If I go into here and run bin cake server, I can access it with this URL in my web browser. This is actually the foundation system build, remember, so we've got all this boring stuff that we can remove later on. And we have properties for sale and so on. Cool. Well, that's interesting. That's telling me I've got a database error. We've probably seen this database error before. Access denied for user my app at localhost. I told PHP Storm about my database, but I didn't tell my application, my CakePHP application about my database. I'm going to go into config, I'm going to go into app.php, go into the data sources. Hopefully all of you have done this. Host is localhost, username is db, super secret unguessable password. Yeah, refresh. And now we can access our list of properties. I haven't created the properties table in my database. I don't care about properties. This is an online store. I really want to be able to have a list of products here, so /products. And it doesn't work very well because there's no products controller, so I need to create that. But I only have 5 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bin cake. We used it for the server, but there's actually a whole bunch of things that Cake knows how to do. Forget about the deprecation errors. Okay, when I run bin cake, it says no command provided. Choose one command from below. Server is one of the commands. I want to use this thing called bake, which is going to create a whole bunch of code for me. So let's go bin cake bake, and it'll say, what do you want to bake? Do you want to bake some controllers or some models or everything? And I want to bake all the things. Which tables do you want to bake? It's going to connect it to the database and say, I found 3 entities in there. What would you like to bake? Well, I want to bake all of the files associated with the categories table and all of the ones associated with the products table. And what that's done is it's gone and created, let's zoom out a bit. If I can get past all these deprecation errors, blah, blah, blah. You know, add.ctp, it will have created a controller for me and a whole bunch of other stuff. So let's run our server again. Let's have a look at what it created. Inside the source directory, inside our controller, products, it created a products controller, which has an index action which goes and gets all of the products from the database and then passes them through to the view. It allows us to view an individual product. Okay, well, what does that look like? Let's go to our, /products. We now have a products controller. And we have a website that allows us to list products. I can edit products. I can go and change orange juice. Maybe there's multiple orange juices, and I want to put it in the food category and save it. Oh, but I need a description. Yum. All right, orange juices, yum, right? I have the ability to list the categories, to edit the categories, to add a new category called orange juice. Oh, so a new category will be called, I don't know. Hey? Whatever. And those things are in my category over here, so I now have a new category, right? If you come to us in iteration 1 and show us a website that looks like this, you will fail. And you can probably guess why. This took us 18 minutes to produce. Now, I don't expect it to take you 18 minutes to produce. I understand it will take longer, right? I've done this demo a few times, so even though Janet didn't believe I could do it in a short period of time, I'm well practiced at this. You're also not just going to use this code. You're also going to create your own code. That bake is just the beginning. It produces a bunch of code, and then you're never going to bake again. You're going to then modify the code. It's a starting point. So I'm going to create a shop controller, right? In my shop controller, I'm going to call it shop controller. And in the index for the shop controller, I'm going to products table equals, let's say this load model products. Then I'm going to say products equals this products, find all of the products for me. And then I'm going to say this set products, so I'm passing it to the view, right? And then inside here, I'm going to create a shop template. And again, I'm not using the bake to do this because this is different business logic that has nothing to do with CRUD records of the database. Inside template, I'm going to create a shop set of templates. And I want to have an index in here. So I'm going to create an index.ctp file, new file, index.ctp. Inside here, online shop, right? Now I should be able to go to my shop and say, let's go to /shop. And I've got my online shop here. I'll also notice how I passed a bunch of data from the controller. So for each product, products as product, I want to do something with it. What do I want to do? I want to output some information. So let's echo product name. I don't care about the ID. The person who's browsing my online store doesn't care about the name, right? So I can start outputting data from the database into here. But really, I want there to be some HTML. So I want a list, an unordered list. And then inside here, I want a list item. Then inside the list item, I want product names, because I want to display them like that. And then I want to start building links. So I actually really want to output this HTML link to a product name, and the link should link to the products controller and the view action, and it should have the product ID in the URL. Is this going to work? I think. So now they're all links that take me to go browse that particular product. Now this is broken, it's taking me to the admin one. Right? This is a very, very brief, quick test, because we're out of time now and we have to leave, about what's involved in going from that initial design, because we always start with a pen and paper, building the database, and then going across and turning it into a product. And that's all. We're out of time. Whew.
At one point, it'd be good.
I see the SQL that was written by CakePHP. There's this cool little tool. There's a cool little toolbar down the bottom, and I can click and have a look at the SQL log, and it shows me what was actually produced by that query. And it should you should be able to read this. You've all done database units, and it should make sense to you. It's no magic, right? I said that you can, if you're good enough, you can picture how the CakePHP code turns into SQL. We can read it, and this is very, very valuable. Thanks.